بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We, Alhamdulillah, have tawfiq to continue our study of logic. We mentioned that for qiyas we have two types of qiyas. Al-qiyas al-iqtirani, al-qiyas al-istithnai. Istithnai is the one that the conclusion is mentioned completely in one of the premises. For example, you say, if sun is shining, it should be bright. But sun is shining, so it is bright. Or but it is not bright, so sun is not shining. This is what we call qiyas istithnai. Qiyas al-iqtirani is when conclusion is broken. Part of it is in major premise, part of it is minor premise, in Suqra and Kubra. For example, we say Socrates is a human being and every human being is mortal, so Socrates is mortal. So Socrates is mortal is neither mentions the first completely nor in the second completely. Part of it, which is Hadda Asqar, is in Suqra. Part of it, which is Hadda Akbar, is in Kubra. Okay. Then we said Qiyas Iqtirani has four types. Four forms. They call it Ashkal Arba'i. There are four types, four forms for Qiyas Iqtirani. The first, which is very natural and very obvious, is the best one, the most understandable one, is to have the logical order that you say Alif is Ba and Kullu Ba is Jim, so Alif is Jim. Okay? So you have Hadd Asqar, Hadd Mushtarak, Hadd Akbar, Hadd Mushtarak disappears, and then Salam Alaikum. You would have Hadd Asqar and Hadd Akbar as subject and predicate. Today we want to see the conditions, because last session, Alhamdulillah, we mentioned these four types and we promised to go into the conditions. Okay, when you say Alif is Ba and then Ba is Jim, or is not, because it can be mujib, it can be salib, it can be juz'iyya, it can be kulliyya. If you yourself study this, what we say is not something that you cannot understand yourself. If you yourself study, you understand that these two, Suqra and Kubra, minor premise and major premise, can only produce a conclusion if there are two conditions. If Suqra is juz'iyya, mujaba, Kubra is kulliyya. Suqra is mujaba, Kubra is kulliyya. For example, Socrates is a human being, so it is mujaba. Every human being is mortal, so Socrates is mortal. Or even if it is Salabiyya Kulliyya, no problem. Socrates is a human being and no human being is a stone. So Socrates is not a stone. So, if kubra is mujibah or salibah, as long as it is kulliyah, we can get a conclusion. Yeah? But if kubra is not kulliyah, for example, we say Socrates is a writer, and some writers are, say, actors. We cannot understand Socrates is actor, or we cannot understand Socrates is not actor. None of them we can understand. Yeah? So if kubra is not kulli, you cannot understand. Because maybe the subject in the Sughra is not the same as the one which has that property or that quality. Also, if Sughra is not mujibah, again it's a problem. For example, if we say Socrates is not a plant, and every plant is like this, or every plant is not like this, again we cannot understand anything from this about Socrates, because you said Socrates is not a plant. So whatever you say about plant, or whatever you negate about plant, would not add to your information about Socrates. So Socrates has to be mujibah, kubra has to be kulliyah. If Sughra is mujibah kulliyah or juz'iyah, no problem. As long as it is mujibah and kubra is kulliyah, we have results. So this is about the first type. Then we go to the second type. In the second type, as you remember, we said haml behardo dovom. We said in the second form of qiyas, the common term, the middle term, had the mushtarak, is mahmul in both sentences, is predicate in both sentences. Haml behardo dovom. Alef ba and jim ba. Instead of saying Aleph is Be and Be is Jim, say Aleph is Ba and Jim is also Ba. It's very complicated compared to the first one. Of course, the most complicated is the fourth one, but still second is more complicated than the first. First is very straightforward. So, when you say Aleph is Ba and Jim is Ba, we have examples like this. Every Muslim believes in the Quran. This is Ayatollah Mutari's example. Every Muslim believes in the Quran. And then the second sentence, whoever worships fire does not believe in the Quran. Okay, so every Muslim believes in the Quran. Whoever worships fire does not believe in the Quran. So to believe or not to believe in the Quran is the common term. Yeah. When I say to believe or not to believe, I mean regardless of mujibah or salibah. Belief in the Quran is the hadd wasat, is the common or middle term. Okay. So when you put these two together, what do you understand? When you say a believer, a Muslim believes in the Quran, whoever worships fire does not believe in the Quran, so you realize that Muslim does not worship fire. Yeah? So this is the conclusion. So we have mahmul in both sentences which is to worship fire. And this is the Hadd Mushtarak or Hadd Wasat. This form of Qiyas, in order to be producing some conclusion, some result, to be muntaj, to be fruitful, has two conditions. One, Suqra and Kubra should be different in kayf. Means one of them has to be mujibah, the other one has to be salibah. We don't say which one. One of them. For example, we said Muslim believes in the Quran, every Muslim believes in the Quran, this is mujibah. Whoever believes in the Quran does not, whoever worships fire does not believe in the Quran. This was salibah. So one was mujibah, one was salibah. It can be also the other way around. The first can be salibah, the second can be. Actually, in the second form, you can replace also these two, but for example, it becomes other way around. You can say, whoever worships fire is not a believer in the Quran. Okay? And you can also, what we said was, every Muslim believes in the Quran. You can mention this for the Kubra and bring the other one, whoever worships fire is not a believer in the Quran, bring it forward. It's also possible. Just the thing is that the subject becomes worshipper of fire. Worshipper of fire is not a Muslim. Muslim is not a worshipper of fire, or worshipper of fire is not a Muslim. You can change their place. So, the conditions. First, Suqra and Kubra should be different in kayf. Means one of them should be mujibah, the other should be salibah. It doesn't make difference which one. Secondly, Kubra should be kulli. Like every worshipper of fire is not a believer in the Quran. Because if you say some of them, then you don't know this is the same ones that you have talked about them in the first. So you have to have kulli as kubra and difference between them in kayf between suqra and kubra. Okay. There are some examples that we can mention to see how it may not work. For example, if we say every human being is animal, is this true or not? Every human being is animal. But then, if you say some jism, some physical objects are not animals, some, not all. It's not called juzi. This is not muntaj. Because when you say some are not animals, we cannot understand, are human beings some of those which are not animal, or they are actually animal. From this you cannot understand. So you have to have suqra and kubra different in kayf. One of them mujibah, one of them salibah, and kubra has to be kulli. Then we go to the third form. Third form was waz' behardu, sevo. The common term should be mawzu in both, should be subject in both. So, ba, alef, ba, jim. Then we want to understand the relation between alef and jim. Ba, alef, ba, jim. What about alef and jim? This is the third type. Here we have again two conditions. Suqra has to be mujibah and kubra or suqra, one of them has to be kulli. One of them is enough to be kulli. For example, Ayatollah Mutahari says, if we say no human being flies, no human being flies, and then you say every human being is a writer, from this you cannot understand whether those that fly are writer or are not writer. From this you cannot understand, because suqra is not mujibah. Forget that from outside you may know that those who fly are not writers, but from this you cannot understand. Yeah, if your information was only this much, you could not understand. Or for example, some human beings are alim, some human beings are adil. Some are alim, scholars, some are adil. Again, from this you cannot understand that what is the relation between alim and adil. You cannot understand. Because maybe those human beings who are alim are different from those who are adil. Is it clear? Yes.
In the first example, what was the first idea? No human being flies?
For example, you say no human being flies, and then you say every human being is, say, walking. From that you cannot understand those who fly are not walking. Maybe those who fly also can walk.
No human being flies, or is it saying no human being can fly?
Doesn't make difference. But both should be the same. For example, no human being can fly, and those who can fly don't walk, or you can say just flying. If you bring can, you should bring to in both. What's the?
No, because if it says no human being flies, then you've eliminated all human beings from flying. And then it says every human is a writer.
Okay.
So that means you can conclude that humans are writers but not flying. You cannot fly.
No. When you say every human being is a writer,
yeah,
this doesn't say anything about those who fly. And this is why you can replace it with my example and say no human being is a flyer. Okay? And then bring human being and walk, for example. Then it doesn't work. For example, every human being is walking. So those who fly can also walk. So you have to be careful, because examples, sometimes from outside we understand the relation. But suppose that you don't know. If you want to train your mind, it's better just to forget any specific subject and predicate and put alif and ba. And then on a piece of paper or on a board, see what can you understand. When you say alif is ba, or some alif is ba, and some jim is ba, what can you understand? Because this is introduction, we don't want to spend too much time. Inshallah, later we can do that. So the best thing you can do is you make all the possible forms in boxes. How many forms are possible, and then which ones are not leading to any conclusion. But right now we just want to familiarize ourselves with the basic concepts. Inshallah, the next step, we can go further. The fourth form is opposite to the first. Okay? رابع اشکال را عکس نخستین شمار. The fourth is quite opposite to the first form. So first was Aleph is ba. For example, some Aleph is ba, kullu ba is jim. So some Aleph is jim. Now make it opposite. Means bring the Hadd Wasat to Mawzu in Suqra and Kubra in Mahmul in Kubra. Like Ba is Aleph and Jim is Ba. Logicians say this form, which actually was not mentioned by Aristotle. Aristotle had not mentioned this form, maybe because it's very complicated and he was not finding this directly produce it. Maybe he was reducing this to the first form. So logicians say if you want to have results, it can produce results under two different conditions. One scenario is this. Both premises should be mujabeh and suqra should be kulli. Both be mujabeh. For example, you say kullu ba alif and kullu jim ba or ba'zu jim ba. This gives answer, gives results. Because indeed what you can do, you can replace and make mujabiyya juz'iyya, and then you can do aks mustavi and becomes the other way around. You know, because aks mustavi is always correct for mujabiyya juz'iyya, mujabiyya juz'iyya. So if both premises are mujabiyya and suqra is kulliyya. Okay? The other scenario is suqra and kubra are different in kayf. One is mujabeh, the other is salabeh, and one of them is kulli. This also gives result. So the fourth type is either producing result, I repeat, when both are mujabeh and suqra is kulliyah, or one is mujabeh, one is salabeh, and one of the premises is kulli. In these two cases, it can produce result. There is a poem that also summarizes these four conditions, and I don't know whether I should write it. Maybe I write it in case. Yes. Yeah. So sughra and kubra should be different in kayf, means one is mujabeh, one is sadabeh, and then one of them at least should be kulli. Okay, one has to be kulli at least. If I don't know, you have this in the book or not. There is a poem which summarizes these conditions, but it has some codes. You have to remember these codes. So mim means mujabeh. Mim. Ghain means sughra. Kaf means kulliyah. Ba means kubra. Okay? So, mughkob awwal. Mughkob. What does it mean? Mujabeh sughra, kulliyah, kubra. This is the first form. مرکب اول. This is not Mongolese. This is this is Farsi, or even can be Arabic. No, this part is also Arabic, but then we have Chaharom and Sevom. It's Farsi. So مرکب اول. مغ موجب صغرا. کب means کلیه کبرا. This is first. خینکب ثانی. خین means اختلاف المقدمتين. اختلاف المقدمتين in إيجاب and سلب. خين كب. كب also means كلية كبرى. So مركب أول خنكب ثاني. مركين سوم. موجب صغرى كليات of إحدى المقدمتين. This is the third.
What is the third?
Pardon?
The third.
Yes. مغ ميم غين. Kain, like Kain, what we say kin. مغكين means كلية إحدى المقدمتين. سوم. در چهارم مینکوغ یا خینکاین شرطا. Because there are two possibilities. مینکوغ means موجبة إحدى المقدمتين or كلية صغرى. These two for one type. مینکوغ or خين اختلاف إحدى المقدمتين means one has to be صالبة, one بموجبة, and كين كلية إحدى المقدمتين. So مخكب أول or مخكب أول, خينكب ثاني, مخكين سوم. Okay? در چهارم مینکوغ یا خینکاین شرطان. So we are not only learning Arabic, we learn also Chinese and but it's not necessary to remember all these things. The main thing is the first form. In the first form, you remember Soghra has to be Mujabeh, Kubra has to be Kulliyah. The rest is just going around that. The next chapter, the next lesson, is about the value of deduction. What we study is formal logic. We call it al-mantiq al-suri, formal logic. Do you know why we call it formal logic? I think I mentioned in the first session why we call this formal logic. Because for any reasoning, any argument, you need proper form, a sound form, and proper content. In this type of logic, what we learn is about how to make a sound structure, a sound form for argument. But then you have to be also careful about the truth of your premises. This doesn't that much talk about the premises. Of course, in Sana'at Khams, inshallah you will learn, we talk about also the contents. But normally, this is only about the form. This is why it doesn't make difference. You say, for example, you can say Aleph, Ba, Jim. But you have to be then careful when you say this A is B, it should not be false. Right now, we don't talk about validity of your material. We are only talking about the structure. Is it clear? So, this is Aristotelian logic, and Muslim logicians used it as a vehicle. They made some additions and changes, but they accepted it. In the Muslim world, there were non-logicians and non-philosophers who were not happy with logic and philosophy. There were people who thought this is a kind of foreign science, and they were not happy with this. Some mutakallimin, or some kind of Sufis and mystics, were not happy with this. They were criticizing this way of reasoning. So, for this reason, Ayatollah Mutahhari has a lesson here about the value of qiyas, deduction. And since most of the discussion is about qiyas in mantiq, we can say the value of mantiq is very much dependent on the value of qiyas. If you say qiyas has no value, almost 80% of mantiq goes away. So, we have to discuss about qiyas. Ayatollah Mutahhari also makes a point in the footnote. He says, actually, even in science, we need qiyas. Don't think in empirical sciences everything is just based on sensation and perception and observation. Even if you want to make any universal proposition in science, you need qiyas. In philosophy of science, they discuss this. Because what you see is always juz'i. You see, water boils here in this degree. This water boils here in this degree. But as soon as you want to form a universal proposition that all water, all kinds of water, boil in this degree, this needs qiyas. And it's very complicated. Avicenna and some other Muslim philosophers have addressed this. For example, there is a rule of al-ittifaqi. There are many things that they use to be able to form a general rule. So if you question qiyas, not only philosophy is rejected, logic is rejected, even chemistry and physics and biology all go away. Because in all of them we need to form qiyas. You have also to remember, qiyas is a kind of mental act. Qiyas is a mental act. Because qiyas is one kind of what? Fikr. What is fikr? Fikr, we said, is an action of the mind, which is a kind of movement from question to the information, finding proper information, putting them together, forming a kind of argument, coming back to that question as conclusion. Yeah? You remember we said the same thing, which is matlub, then becomes natija. The question that you want to discuss finally becomes your conclusion. Okay? So, فكر حركة الذهن من المراد إلى المبادئ ومن المبادئ إلى المراد. Okay? Qiyas is a kind of fikr. And that is when your mind goes from question to the information that it has, finds two propositions that are related to this. Okay? The subject and predicate of this question are in those propositions. You cannot find any proposition. you have to find two propositions that have these subject and predicate with a common term that can connect them. Okay? So this is a mental act. Qiyas is not knowledge. Qiyas is act. Ayatollah Mutahari says, it's not ilm, it's amal. It's an action of the mind. It's a kind of fikr. Qiyas is not a knowledge. Qiyas is a process. It's a process that your mind has for coming to conclusion. Okay? So, some people have said Qiyas is not valid, it's false. And some people have said Qiyas has no benefit, it's useless. So some have said it's not true, it's false. Some said it's useless. Okay? Those who say it's false, they want to say you cannot make any conclusion out of this. Inshallah, we will mention some of their points. Some say it is useless. Ayatollah Mutahari says, in West and in the Muslim world, you find people who have either said the first or the second. So it's not only something in Muslim world or in the Western world. You find people in both Western world and Muslim world who have questioned the truth or the usefulness of Qiyas. In the Muslim world, he refers to some urafa, some mutakallimin, and some muhaddithin, whose expertise is in hadith. For example, Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair, a famous Sufi master. He has criticism of logic. Sayrafi, Ibn Taymiyyah, Suyuti, and Mullah Amin Astarabadi, who is Akhbari, they were not happy with Qiyas. So some Sunni, some Shia, Sufi, Arif, theologians, not many, but they are there. For example, there is a famous story that they say Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair and Abu Ali Sina lived at the same time. They were contemporary to each other. Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair and Abu Sina, or we say Ibn Sina, Abu Ali Sina. Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair made a criticism of Qiyas. I want you to listen carefully so that you understand his criticism. He said, the first form of Qiyas is the best and the basis of all other forms. Isn't it? The first one, Shakl Akbar, is the best. And still, it has problem. He said, when you say Socrates is human being, and every human being is mortal, so Socrates is mortal. Okay? This is what you say in Shakl Akbar. He says, I have a problem with this. When you say every human being is mortal, isn't Socrates also one human being? So it means that when you said every human being is mortal, you knew that Socrates and Aristotle and Aflatun and Zayd and Amr and Bak, all of them are mortal. So you knew that. Then if you knew that, what new conclusion you want to make? And if you didn't know that Socrates is mortal, how did you say kull human being is fani, is mortal? So either you knew Socrates is fani, then there is nothing new. If you didn't know how you said kullu insanin fani. This is the criticism of Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair. But Ibn Sina answered. I think you can guess the answer. Where are the Ibn Sinas of class? What's the answer? It's not difficult. When we say kullu insanin fan, every human being is mortal, it was not based on counting all human beings and coming to this conclusion. We didn't do istiqra. We sometimes can reach kulli, a general proposition, through other means of arguing. And then we apply it to the instances. So for example, by knowing the nature of human being, and human beings have body and are dependent, and everything is which has physical body is going to perish, we say they are going to die. Then we say, okay, Socrates is also a human being, so Socrates is also going to die. So we didn't look at Socrates and other people and then say because they are dying, so every human being is dying, and now we say Socrates is dying, this becomes a vicious circle. No. We had another way to come to that kullu insanin fan, and we applied it. Okay? So this is the answer of Ibn Sina to Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair. Ibn Taymiyyah has a book, Ar-Raddu ala al-Mantiq. If he knew that today we are in London studying Mantiq, he would have died sooner. Okay. Suyuti, who is a reasonable Shafi'i scholar, he has very good books on Arabic grammar, on tafsir. Ad-Durr al-Manthur is his tafsir. But he has a book, صون المنطق والكلام عن المنطق والكلام, protecting logic and theology from logic and theology. Basically against what they thought it's foreign and a stranger knowledge to Islamic thought. Mullah Amin Astarabadi, who is a Akhbari, one of the scholars in the time of Safavids, he has a book, Al-Fawaidul Madaniyya. In the 11th and the 12th chapters, he talks about uselessness of mantiq. Okay? So, in the Muslim world, you have some people who had this idea. Ibn Hazm also has criticism of mantiq. In the West, also some people attacked Aristotelian logic. And some people said that only we have to go for modern logic. But, inshallah, as you will see, logic is not something that someone can deny. Maybe we can try to improve it. Maybe we can bring more, conditions, as Muslim scholars, Muslim philosophers and logicians have done. But This is not something that anyone can question, because it's the way your mind works. Even those who talk against mantiq, they have to use mantiq. You cannot reject mantiq without using mantiq, because this is the way our mind works. If you say our mind works in another way, show us. If you say what Aristotle has presented is not perfect, okay, this is something that can always be improved. Like, for example, when you study rules of grammar, you are not producing grammar. You are trying to discover grammar. Maybe you mention few rules. Someone says, no, these rules have more conditions, have more details. They develop it further. But no one can say we don't need grammar, or grammar is useless. So, no one can say we don't need mantiq. We don't need knowledge. Because we need to argue. We need to put our information together to understand those things that we don't know. In order to better understand what we want to achieve in mantiq, now we go to another discussion. How many different actions our mind has? In other words, what are different types of fikr, thinking, that our mind does? First, the first thing that our mind does is to take impressions from the external world. You form images from the external world. As a child, what is the first thing that you see? Maybe your mother, your father. You make images of these things, and little by little you make other images. Okay? So here our mind is like a camera that takes pictures. Okay? Ayatollah Mutahari says, in this aspect, our mind is passive, because you just take pictures. This is not a still. The creativity of mind. Just mind makes pictures. Of course, mind is very good in taking pictures. Sometimes you think, for example, a child is not understanding, but they are recording everything, whether it be visual picture, or can be voice, can be a smell. Okay? Everything is stored. One of the people who was able to memorize Quran in the age of 5, his mother used to have classes for teaching Quran to the women. And because had this young child, was taking the child with her, or the sisters that were going to their home. The child was just playing around, just listening. Maybe mother didn't think that the child is following up. It is playing. But then all of a sudden, maybe the age of 3 or something like this, so he can read few verses. And they worked with him. In the age of 5, he memorized the whole Quran. He came also to the UK, when we were in Manchester many years ago. So, the child was recording but no one thought that the child is recording. Or sometimes you do something in front of a baby, you think he's not understanding, but he's recording. Maybe he cannot understand what is happening, but he's recording. In future, maybe he understand what was happening. Or what is the meaning of this. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we can say everything also is going to remain. Because sometimes the things that we think we have forgotten, all of a sudden, they come out. Therefore, we go to the second thing, which is about memory. Our mind, after taking these images, puts them in archive. And then, when it's needed, brings them out. And Ayatollah Mutahari says it's sometimes like a series or chain of images. If you bring one of them, the rest comes. Sometimes, for example, you don't remember anything about a lecture. Then you bring one point to the person's mind, and then he can bring other things. Yes? So it means it's there, but you need association of ideas to use that, because these ideas are connected to each other. People normally remember, for example, stories more. So if you can build ideas around stories, then maybe they can better remember this. So this is another amazing aspect of our mind. The third is what Ayatollah Mutahari says, tajziyeh and tarkib, analysis and combination. In the first, you just take images. In the second, you just store them. In the third, you have some creativity. Okay? For example, tajziyah, analyze. You see a human being, you analyze it into parts or into meanings. For example, you say a human being has head, neck, hand, stomach, legs. You analyze it into parts, or you analyze it into meanings. Say human being is حيوان ناطق. Is a جسم, it's نامي, it's حساس, متحرك بالإرادة. So this is analysis. Or you can combine. You take body of a human being with the head of a lion. Or body of a lion, head of a human being. Your mind can make these photoshops. Yeah? Or a human being with two heads. This is the third. Okay? The fourth is your mind can do tajreed. Tajreed means to separate. We say mujarrad. Mujarrad means abstract. Separate. In Farsi we use for single. People who are single, we call them mujarrad. Means they are separate. Mujarrad. But also we have this book, Ruh Mujarrad. Liberated soul. Okay? Means he's free. So, one action of mind is tajreed, to separate. For example, you have seen one pencil, one TV, one laptop, then you separate one from those objects and come up with understanding of the number one. How did you do that? With tajreed, by separation. Or you have seen Zayd and Amr and Bakr, then you come up with a general concept of human being. This is called ta'mim, generalization. Zayd was not general, Amr was not general, or Bakr was particular. But you come up with a general concept of human being. This is called ta'mim. The fifth action of mind is what we need to discuss. Fikr, istidlal, reasoning, arguing. This is when our mind puts some information, some facts, some proved ideas together to understand something which is not yet known. This is the fifth action of our mind. So he says it's like investment. Our mind has already some information, uses them as capital and invests in order to make some profit, which is new knowledge. You want to understand new things. Now, the whole question about validity or usefulness of logic is this. Is this investment going to be making profit, or we are not going to make any profit? Can we come to know new things, or we cannot come to know new things? Those who were empiricists had the idea there is no way to get new information except through the first thing. Just take images from outside by your senses. Empiricists say no reasoning, no fikr. Thus you have to use your senses to observe or experiment. But we say no. In addition to empirical knowledge, we can have intellectual reasoning and arguing. Then Ayatollah Mutahari makes an example. And this example, I just mentioned 1 minute. I don't go into detail. You think about it. There are 3 people with 5 hats. 3 people with 5 hats. Hat. Okay. And 3 of these hats are white. 2 of them are red. 3 are white, 2 are red. These 3 people are sitting on stairs of a ladder. So the one who is on the 3rd stair can see the hats of the other one, but cannot see what hat is on his head. Okay? So, there's a quiz for you. How can these people come to an understanding of what are these hats' colors? Ayatollah Mutahari says one scenario, but you have to analyze it. He says they close their eyes, they put these hats and they don't see. Then they ask the 3rd person, the one on the top, what is the color of your hat? He says, I don't know. They ask the 2nd person, what is your color? He looks at the first person and says, it's white. And the one who in the lowest, he immediately says, it's red. The third says, I don't know. The second says it's white. The third is red. Now you think about it, how this can work. And then you will see that our mind is able to come to new conclusion, understand new things from the information that we have. So think about it, inshallah, without, of course, reading the book. Don't read the book, then inshallah we will discuss. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.